April was a down month in investment markets. The overall stock markets were flat. The Australian dollar continued to rise. So this resulted in a negative return of the Morgan Stanley Capital International World Index in Australian dollars of -1.5%. The market also fell slightly in Australia, so that the All Ordinaries Index was down 0.6% for the month. Looking at those two indices over a year though, the MSCI was also flat over the year mainly because of that continued rise in the Australian dollar, plus 0.6%, and the Australian stock market was up 5.4% for the year to April. Looking at our flagship fund, the Value Growth Trust, the Value Growth Trust had a relatively good month, but it did have a negative month of -0.8% for the month. Looking at it over a year though, it has achieved an 8.9% positive return. So the Value Growth Trust has continued to do well relative to its performance benchmark, the MSCI index, and over 1 year has what I'd regard as a reasonable absolute return in positive terms. Looking at the contributions to this return for the fund during the month, the biggest contributor was Chinese mining company Lumina, which increased by 44% after it announced increases in profits and revenues for the year. The other main contributor was Australian flu drug manufacturer Biota, which was up 14% after it was awarded a $231 million research grant contract from the US government to develop its new flu antiviral. Two major detractors for the month. Firstly, Allahabad Bank, one of our Indian public sector banks, which fell by 11% after the Reserve Bank of India announced an interest rate increase, leading to a revision of the growth forecast of the company. And also our Taiwanese electrical components manufacturer Epistar, which announced sluggish results for the first quarter of 2011, leading to a 12% decrease in the stock price for the month. Looking at the Value Growth Trust overall, major changes were that we increased our cash and gold levels to 20% of the fund, reflecting our fairly cautious view of the outlook for investment markets over the near term. The Australian dollar position of the fund sits at 63% overall exposure. This comprises of Australian dollar cash, our exposure to Australian stocks in the fund, and also a 45% hedge of global currency exposure back to the Australian dollar. So overall, the Value Growth Trust had a moderate month, performing relatively well against its benchmark.